Welcome to Ruffing the Pass, a show where I talk football, miscellaneous stuff, and mostly football. I'm your host, Sam Ruffing, and in this video I will talk about why the Buffalo Bills need to fire Sean McDermott, why Jalen Hurts needs to be MVP of the league, and why the Dallas Cowboys should kick Dak Prescott to the curb. I recently found out the Denver Broncos hired Packers OC Nathaniel Hackett to be their next head coach. But come on, take the field goal, take the point, win the game.
No, you have to take that.
See you all. But before we get on to that, I would like to apologize for my microphone in the last video being rubbed up against my jacket. It was, I imagine, not the most pleasant thing to listen to, and I do apologize. I'll try to do better. Anyways, the Buffalo Bills faced off against the Cincinnati Bengals this past Sunday at 3 p.m. in a snowy Buffalo Stadium in what should have been a beautiful matchup between the two of the three premier quarterbacks in the AFC in Joe Burrow and Josh Allen. But what actually happened was the Bills got stomped 10-27 in what was the epitome of Sean McDermott's playoff games in his time as the Buffalo head coach. Let's just get off to the start. Sean McDermott is a defensive head coach he's a head coach, but he's a defensive mind for the Buffalo Bills, who, for over the last few seasons, have had great defenses. I mean, last year they were like the number 1 unit in the NFL. This year they were the number 2 unit in the NFL, I think. And they were dominant, rolling through the AFC. Should have had the number 1 seed if it weren't for the Damar Hamlin situation. And he had a home field advantage against, the Cincinnati Bengals in the snow with Buffalo weather. And still found a way to blow it. Of course he did. I mean, his defense that he's so proud of gave up a touchdown on the opening drive and didn't even look like they could put up a fight against Cincinnati. And then after the Bills' offense went 3 and out, the Bills' defense decided to allow another touchdown, put them in a 14-0 hole early in the game. But they were soon bailed out, as they always are, by Josh Allen's amazing talent, who led the Bills on a long touchdown drive, which he ran in himself to make it 7-14. From there, however, the Bills' offense, who's under Sean McDermott's leadership, has basically just been let Josh Allen cook and see what happens. And most of the time that works, but of course, that's only if Josh Allen is playing well that day. And if not, then they basically have no other options. And Josh Allen was not playing well that day, and the Bills decided, with their bad defense in the playoffs, to lose the game inexplicably to the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm not the Kansas City Chiefs, the Cincinnati Bengals. From there, they only scored 3 points, while Cincinnati put up another 13 in a 27-10 win. And after this game, I've seen enough. The Buffalo Bills need to fire Sean McDermott. He's done this every year he's been head coach. Almost every year he's been the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. I mean, going back to 2019 when they had the lead or went into overtime against the Houston Texans and allowed Deshaun Watson to make a wacko play to Carlos Hyde, who took it down the sideline to set up the game-winning field goal for them. Then Kansas City in 2020 when the Bills went up 10 and then did nothing after that. And the last year when they faced the Kansas City Chiefs and blew it in overtime because, of course, the man whose defense is supposed to be ruling the game can't make a stop. Of course, the overtime rules are also crap, but even still. He's had big game after big game after big game and has blown it. The man, Sean McDermott, cannot plan an offense to save his life. I mean, run game for the Bills, they were maybe like 14th in the NFL this year. I don't know. They were middle of the pack in run game, in rushing yards. But that's only if you take into the fact that the Bills' Josh Allen had about 500 rushing yards this season. Without Josh Allen, the Bills had like only 800 yards and were 27th without Josh Allen in rushing yards for the entire season. Which basically means Josh Allen had no run game besides himself. He couldn't have a run game to take the pressure away, to set up the play action, all that. He basically lets the offense, as mentioned, just let Josh cook, and which does not work if Josh Allen decides to have a bad day, because you know what? He can't be perfect all the time. I mean, Sean McDermott, and, you see this with other bad head coaches like Andy Reid. He's not a bad head coach. I mean, coaches who generally don't have the Super Bowl wins of a Bill Belichick or a Mike Shanahan or even a Gary Kubiak. I don't know. Coaches like that you see in the playoffs all the time, have easy situations, and they just blow it inexplicably. Like, year in and year out, and it's the same things that you get them for. I mean, the Bills looked unprepared against Cincinnati. Just flat out unprepared. This is supposed to be one of the best head coaches in the NFL. This is a guy who has the home field with the Damar Hamlin rally against the Bengals, and they can't do anything? They only put up 10 points? And his vaunted defense, coordinated by Leslie Frazier, who should be a head coach apparently, which is he shouldn't after, these games, which was number 2 in the NFL. You know what they've put up in their last 4 playoff games? 17 to the Patriots, 42 to the Kansas City Chiefs, 29 to the Miami Dolphins, and now 27 to the Cincinnati Bengals. Allowing, and this is insane. Like, this is horrifically bad. They've allowed 29.25 points a game over their last 4 playoff games. A game! That's terrible for, what was the best defense in the NFL last year, and now the second best defense in the NFL this year. Head coaches need to, put in a plan in place for their team to succeed. If you're going to be a defensive coach in this league, you need to have your defense perform. Otherwise, you're basically useless, because the fact that your offense the fact you're not coaching offense means your offense has to rely on either having a great quarterback or a great offensive coordinator, which the Bills don't really have besides the great quarterback. Now, this guy can make up for it with a great defense, but his defense has been crap. And as a head coach, I mean, you've had 6 years at this. You've only made 1 AFC championship game with Josh Allen. He needs to... that's just a fireable offense. If I'm the Buffalo Bills and I see that performance once again from the team that had the 2nd seed with all the momentum and hype and coming off of a win against Miami that wasn't good, but you could coach players hard because they played like crap, but you still won, there is no excuse for losing that game. Like, just straight up none. They have a better defense than Cincinnati. They have a better offense. And they have a better, wide receiver. They have a lot of better positions than Cincinnati, especially O-line. Yet, Cincinnati goes in there and just owns you in your home stadium. It's inexcusable. And Sean McDermott should be fired. You should not lose that. And besides, if you did fire him, I'm sure Sean Payton would be on the next flight to Buffalo. Even if he had to ride and coach, he would be on that next flight to Buffalo, coaching the Bills, he'd probably take a discount. I mean, if he got the chance to coach Josh Allen, that would be scary. It'd be like Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, but the Buffalo edition. The Bills need to fire Sean McDermott. Simple as that. The two number 1 seeds in the NFL played this past weekend, both on Saturday. The Philadelphia Eagles faced off against the New York Giants, and the Kansas City Chiefs played against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, both these teams are obviously great teams. One featuring Andy Reid, who is a great coach, been around for a long time. The other featuring Nick Sirianni, who is, well, I mean, an up-and-coming rising star at head coach. And Jalen Hurts, who is an up-and-coming star at NFL quarterback, and is up for MVP consideration. And also, the Chiefs had, Patrick Mahomes, who's everyone's saying MVP. But since they're both in the MVP, comparing their performances over these last few games will be imperative in deciding who is the most valuable. And so that's what I have done over these, pretty much the season, I guess, in the back of my mind. Okay, I really didn't think about it, but over the last week I decided to compare them in MVP form, and I have decided that this last weekend proved to everyone, and just proved to everyone, that Jalen Hurts should be the MVP of the NFL. And here's why. So what does MVP stand for? Most Valuable Player. AKA the guy who, without him, the team would be absolutely horrific. Would be nowhere, would not have the success they have gained without them. And if we look at the two candidates, you got Patrick Mahomes, who, obviously great, has led the team to 14 wins, all that goodness, and only 3 losses. And, threw 41 touchdowns, 5,000 passing yards, only 12 interceptions. Great year for him. And then you got Jalen Hurts, the man who led the Philadelphia Eagles to 14 wins as well, and the number 1 seed. He didn't throw as many touchdowns, but is pretty much their entire offense. But I'll get onto that later. Now, how do you tell if a player is more valuable to the team? Well, as mentioned, obviously the most valuable player is the guy who, without them, the team would be crap. And so we have some sample sizes of these two players without their teams. And what do they look like? Well, the Kansas City Chiefs, without Patrick Mahomes on Saturday, only had Chad Henne come in after his injury, after Mahomes went for the sidelines. And I don't know, he only led a 98-yard touchdown drive. A 98-yard touchdown drive. That's insane. He also has Andy Reid as his head coach, who's calling every play, who has already had success previously to Patrick Mahomes. And then you also have Jalen Hurts, who led his team to 14 wins this season, but didn't play every game. So what did that team look like without the, MVP Jalen Hurts? Well, they went 0-2, including only scoring 10 points against the Saints. Yeah, only scoring 10 points against the Saints. And so that's a pretty good, sign. I mean, if you saw what the Eagles looked like without Jalen, they allowed 40 points to the Cowboys, which I don't really think is on Hurts, but he only scored 10 points without him against Jacksonville. And then without Patrick Mahomes, the Kansas City Chiefs score a 98-yard touchdown with Chad Henne. Really? It's called the most valuable player. And while, yes, Patrick Mahomes is a big part of the Chiefs' success, I mean, the Jalen Hurts has been an even huger part of the Eagles' success this season and last season. But it's all about this season anyways. When Patrick Mahomes returned to the Chiefs lineup, it was pretty much the same as it was with Chad Henne. Honestly, he only scored 10 more points and didn't really do much. I mean, he did enough, but it wasn't, anything spectacular. Despite the injured ankle, I'll admit. That's pretty impressive. But it wasn't much. And then when Jalen Hurts came back for the Eagles, they went from 10 points, and you know that 34 points from Gardner Minshew, but that had a pick six in there. They went from 10 points to 19 points, and then this game against the Giants, they scored 38 points with Jalen Hurts. And they just look completely different with Jalen Hurts. I mean, scrambling, buying time, being surprisingly accurate, and gaining yard after yard after yard, just finding ways to make plays. With Gardner Minshew, despite how much I love him, they weren't that. What did the Chiefs look like without Mahomes? Not much different. I mean, the 98-yard touchdown and Chad Henne looked pretty much the same. Mahomes came back in there, not much different. Now, if that doesn't convince you because numbers, because that's all it's about, numbers and narrative, well, why don't we look at wins? Because, wins are incredibly important. And as mentioned, both quarterbacks had 14 wins, but Mahomes had 3 losses. Two of them to Josh Allen. One of them to Josh Allen and one of them to Joe Burrow, who are his contemporaries, and who he should be better than, but lost to both of them. Anyways, what about the Jalen Hurts-led Philadelphia Eagles? Well, they went 0-2 without him. That's right. Jalen Hurts won 14 games. They both had both teams had the same record, but the Eagles with Jalen Hurts went 14-1. 14-1 against everyone else. That's, one loss, and that was to Taylor Heineke. That's impressive. I mean, if it's a higher win percentage than Patrick Mahomes has. And also, the Eagles won the number 1 seed, and they should have won the number 1 seed. The Chiefs won the number 1 seed and probably shouldn't have won the number 1 seed. This is about the most valuable player in the NFL. And as mentioned, while yes, Patrick Mahomes is valuable, the team would have been fine without him. I mean, they would have been like a pedestrian. They would have been a playoff team without him. The Eagles without Jalen Hurts, I'm not so sure. I don't think it clicks. So that's my opinion. I think Jalen Hurts is the MVP of the league. Now let's talk about Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys lost to the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday in what was a rematch of last year's wild card round game. And, well, there are many storylines after that game, like what the heck was that final play? Brett Maher missing another field goal, and Dak Prescott throwing 2 interceptions. Now, over the last few years, there has been debate on whether or not Dallas head coach Mike McCarthy is worthy of his job title or should be kicked to the curb, or whether or not it's Dak Prescott who should be kicked to the curb. And I dare say, dear viewers, that it should be Dak Prescott who is kicked to the curb and not Mike McCarthy. Now, I know this sounds crazy, but it really isn't. Dak Prescott is a quarterback who has been good to great over his time in Dallas, but a little bit underachieving in the playoffs. He has 2 playoff wins, 4 losses, and never made an NFC Championship game. Mike McCarthy has made plenty of NFC Championship games, goes to Dallas, has Dak Prescott, and can't go anywhere. Now, in that game, the team honestly had a lot of opportunities to beat the San Francisco 49ers. Their defense was playing really well. Their offense was okay. I mean, their defense playing really well. The special teams, despite that missed field goal or blocked field goal, did have a punt recovery, fumble recovery on a muff punt. So they were playing well. It was just the offense that let them down, and of course the 2 people contributing to that offense were Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott, who are both offensive guys. But the key thing here for Dak Prescott, like Sean McDermott earlier, is he's had plenty of opportunities in these playoffs to get his team deep, win the game, whatever, and he just hasn't done so. I mean, he went up against the San Francisco 49ers and he threw 2 interceptions. One of them was a tip ball, but I mean, you shouldn't have thrown that pass, threw right into double coverage. And the other one, it was just a terrible pass right to the defender. And Dak Prescott's done this before. I mean, last year in the wild card game, they had every right to beat the San Francisco 49ers and didn't do so. This, I mean, 2018, who did they face? Not Green Bay. They just beat Seattle. They're facing the Rams, I think. And they were completely owned in that game. Yeah, they were facing the Rams and were owned in that game. As the Rams are going to win the Super Bowl. I'm playing the Super Bowl. Dak Prescott has shown this before in his career. I mean, he's got great, stats, great talent, but just cannot get it done in the playoffs. And it's not like he's had a bad team around him either. I mean, he's got CeeDee Lamb, he's got Zeke Elliott, Tony Pollard, Dalton Schultz, a good O-line, an amazing defense with Micah Parsons and, being led by Dan Quinn. And yet, year in and year out, he's just absolutely blew it pretty much every time. I mean, obviously he couldn't make that play call against the San Francisco 49ers last year with the run. That was weird. But even still, he had his opportunities in this game to win it. 3 down, 7 with 3 minutes left. He got the ball and went 3 and out. That's not a mark of a great quarterback. I mean, you're shown it year in and year out that you just keep losing, and it's time to move on. I mean, he's got good talent, yes, but he's holding this team back. I mean, he just cannot get over the hump, has not gotten over the hump. And the Cowboys would be better served if they just traded him, probably get a first for him, and then looked in the draft for a new quarterback who's got high-end talent and you can develop, because obviously they got players that would be pretty easy to develop, a young guy or whatever. I mean, I made a video last year about why the Cowboys should have traded for Russell Wilson, and well, that has not aged well, the Russell Wilson part. The fact that they should have traded for a higher-end quarterback, I think, still stands. I mean, the rosters Dak has had 2 back-to-back seasons with 12 wins and no conference championships to show for it. I mean, Tony Romo never had a roster this good in Dallas. And, well, he didn't make an NFC championship game, but if he was on this team, he would take that team to the NFC championship game. No doubt. He probably would have taken them in 2016 when they were absolutely loaded. And I was screaming at the TV, put in Romo! But they didn't put in Romo. It's time to move on from Dak, get a new quarterback, and stop living in the mediocrity that the Dallas Cowboys typically do. Now, let's move on to the AFC NFC Championship game predictions. Oh boy, this will be fun. In the AFC, we have the Kansas City Chiefs versus Cincinnati Bengals at Arrowhead in a rematch of last year's championship game. In the NFC, we have the Philadelphia Eagles, who are the #1 seed and being heavily doubted against a young quarterback who's come out of nowhere to lead a surprise team who has a spectacular defense, great weapons, and a good head coach, to the NFC Championship game. This reminds me of 2017. More on that later. But let's start with the AFC Championship. I have to pick one of these teams, don't I? All right, so Cincinnati Bengals coming in hot. 3-0 against Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow is. And they just beat the Baltimore Ravens and their arch rival. Demolished the Buffalo Bills, and now are going into Arrowhead, facing off against the Kansas City Chiefs, who are still loaded, but missing Tyreek Hill this year, and Patrick Mahomes has an injured ankle. So this will be interesting. The Bengals have a really good defense, and led by Lou Anarumo. They have the weapons of Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd, and Joe Mixon. The Chiefs have Travis Kelce, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Patrick Mahomes. But Patrick Mahomes has an injured ankle. So, Who do I think's going to win this one? Well, all signs are pointing to these Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, they got the momentum. They have the weapons, the team, the confidence, the swagger. The quarterback has only lost once in the playoffs, and that was to Matt Stafford, the most clutch quarterback of that single playoff run of one of all time. Anyways, who wins in Cincinnati versus KC? I've got, well, I really want to say Cincinnati. I really do, but what's holding me back from saying Cincinnati is the fact that they have, yes, beaten Patrick Mahomes 3 times in a row now, but that streak's got to end at some point. I know it's superstitious and maybe a little foolish, but I have the Kansas City Chiefs beating the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't want to say it. I really don't. I don't want it to happen. But I have the Kansas City Chiefs winning. Yes, they don't have Tyreek Hill, and yes, Patrick Mahomes is on a bum ankle, but they have the home field, and I just have that fear that Patrick Mahomes is going to do it. He's going to win, and it's going to be really annoying to watch, and just straight up painful. Now, the NFC Championship game. The San Francisco 49ers have been led here by Brock Purdy. A 7th round pick, Mr. Irrelevant, the guy taken right after Skylar Thompson, literally a pick after, has gone 7-0 to lead this team to a 13-4 record and put them on the cusp of making the Super Bowl with George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey. One of the best offense in the NFL and the best defense in the NFL, led by Joey Bosa and DeMeco Ryans coordinating it, versus the best team in the NFL all season, the Philadelphia Eagles, led by MVP Jalen Hurts. At least my MVP. You're my MVP, man. Dallas Goedert, one of the best offenses in the NFL, and a absolutely loaded defense, full of playmakers, like Darius Slay, like Brandon Graham, like, what's Fletcher Cox? Yes, Fletcher Cox. And just absolutely loaded. Who wins? Well, the last time I saw a team whose quarterback went down and was replaced by a guy who a third string who no one saw coming, to lead them to a Super Bowl, or on the cusp of the NFC Championship game, with a loaded offense, when the game ended on one of the craziest plays and dumbest things I've ever seen. That was the Case Keenum-led Minnesota Vikings, who faced off against Philadelphia Eagles' Nick Foles, who came out of nowhere and surprised everyone and won the Super Bowl. And they were absolutely destroyed, mind you. And honestly, I don't see it destroying as much, but I see the Philadelphia Eagles beating the San Francisco 49ers in this NFC title game. I mean, Philly is a team no one's really talked about this year after their great start. I mean, yes, they talked about them, but they're all like skeptical, trying to bring them down. But let's be honest, Philly has been dominant. I mean, just easily the best. They have the defense, and Jalen Hurts led the 38-7 dominant victory over the New York Giants, who were a good team, greatly coached, and they made it look like nothing. San Francisco's a great team, greatly coached as well. But Brock Purdy's young, and Kyle Shanahan has had trouble in these big games as head coach thus far. And I like Sirianni. I like Hurts. I love that defense. I think the Philadelphia Eagles will win the Super Bowl. I said it. I think they'll win the Super Bowl, ladies and gentlemen. There, I said it. All right. I have the Eagles winning. Eagles, Chiefs, baby. I don't want to see Chiefs there. I want to see Eagles, Bengals. But here we are. Now, why has Brock Purdy been so good? This is an interesting one. Brock Purdy, a man no one saw coming out of college. I mean, he was a good 5-year starter at Iowa State, who led them to, some decent seasons and had good intangibles, but was Mr. Irrelevant in the draft. Why has he been so good? It doesn't make much sense. I mean, you don't see guys come in and just go win after win and after win. And why can't people stop him? Well, here's why. He is a rookie quarterback. And we have seen who's, undefeated. We have seen many rookie quarterbacks in NFL history come in and just light the NFL on fire. And there are a few reasons for that. One of them is talent. One of them is, obviously how good they are at football, just in general. Like their mind and whatnot, and their confidence and their mentality. And obviously Purdy doesn't have great talent. I mean, he can throw it decently. He throws it far enough. He runs well enough. And, he's accurate. But I wouldn't say that's really why he's winning. Confidence? Yeah, he's got confidence. They don't call him Big, Rooster Purdy. Big Rooster Brock for nothing. I mean, he just looks just full of swagger. He throws darts into double coverage like he doesn't give a rip. It's like watching Taylor Heineke, but coached by Kyle Shanahan, and it is beautiful to see. And that is part of the reason, but I think the main reason why Brock Purdy has been so good is why most some rookie quarterbacks do play good, do play well. Teams do not have film on them. I mean, how many rookie quarterbacks have you seen come in to the NFL, come out with 8-game winning streaks, or 8-game stretches of absolute dominance, and then suddenly hit a wall where they need to recalibrate a little and fix some things? Like Justin Herbert obviously didn't get a lot of wins, but he came out hot until he just played hot. Here's a good example. Oh yeah, Ben Roethlisberger. His rookie season, he went 14-0 as a starter, and lost the AFC Championship game. It took teams forever to get some film on him, and so while he had the talent, the swagger, he just went out there and balled. And because no one knew what he was doing, he was just hitting dime after dime after dime and leading his team to victory. What did Brock Purdy do this year? Well, he came in to a great situation like Ben Roethlisberger, and he has hit dime, thrown dime after dime, confidence, no tape on him, because teams don't know what to do because they haven't seen enough of him. They don't know all his tendencies. They don't know what makes him bad, what makes him good. Nothing, so that's why he's played lights out thus far and stepped up in the moment. And because he just came at the right time, just because obviously if he came in at the start of the season and played this well, he would hit a wall by the bye week. I mean, by Thanksgiving, teams would figure him out and be like, yeah, we should do that to him, and he would have a few rough games here or there. But because he came in late, no team has had time to figure him out yet. And so he's just gone on win after win after win. It's basically the start of his season was late as opposed to early, and so he could win and win and win and win. And I think that's played a huge role for Brock Purdy and why he's been so good. And while I don't think it will carry him to a win this year, it would at least explain why he's been so dominant in such an odd circumstance. And yeah, that's about it for me on this episode. I am Sam Ruffing, Roughing the Passer. I thank you all very much for watching. If you have enjoyed, hit the like button and share this video with your friends and family. If you want to stay up to date with my content, hit the subscribe button and hit that bell to stay notified when I upload every video. I thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later. Good night.